before you take that step, before the clothes come off, the lights dim, and the moment blurs into something unforgettable or regrettable, pause and ask him, what version me? What are you really looking for right now? It sounds simple, but don't let that fool you. Version of me. This one question has the power to protect your heart, your time, and your peace of mind. Too many people fall into a situation where the chemistry is hot, the moment feels right, but the morning after brings confusion instead of clarity. Version of me. And that usually happens because no one stopped to ask what this actually means to the other person. Happy version of me. You're not asking this to trap him or get him to say what you want to hear. You're asking it because clarity is confidence. Version of me. You deserve to know whether you're about to share something meaningful with someone who's aligned with you or just caught in the moment, chasing pleasure without considering the cost. If he says, I'm just having fun, then you have a decision to make. If that doesn't match what you'll want, then no matter how attracted you are, you already have your answer. Walking away from someone who's not aligned with your values is not a loss, it's a win. It means you just saved yourself days, weeks, or even months of emotional stress for one night of fleeting passion. Now, if he tells you he's open to more version of me or genuinely looking to build something deeper, that doesn't mean you rush in, but it does mean the conversation has created space for mutual understanding. That's the real purpose of asking. Version of me. You're not just listening to his words, you're observing how he responds. Does he get defensive? Does he avoid answering? Or does he welcome the question with honesty and maturity? Version of me. That tells you everything about whether he's capable of meeting you where you are emotionally. So don't fear the question. If anything, version of me. Fear I not asking it. Because the moment you ask, you shift the dynamic. You go from someone waiting for him to define what this is to someone taking ownership of your choices. And that kind of self-respect, happy version of me, that's far more attractive and far more powerful than any seductive moment could ever be. It's easy to be drawn in by charm, version of me, confidence and attraction, but those things don't prepare you for what happens when things get real. That's why asking him, how do you usually handle conflict in relationships, can be one of the smartest things you do before taking things to the next level. Because version of me, here's the truth, intimacy isn't just about the moment you share in bed. It's about everything that comes after. And nothing reveals a person's emotional maturity more than how they deal with tension, disagreement, or vulnerability. Version of me. This question isn't meant to put him on trial. It's an invitation for honesty. You want to understand how he navigates the less glamorous of a relationship, because no matter how good the chemistry is, happy version me, it won't carry you through miscommunication or unmet expectations. If he says he shuts down when things get hard or tends to walk away when emotions get intense, he's giving you vital information. P version of me, you're not judging him. You're observing how aware he is of his own patterns. Is he someone who can sit in discomfort and talk things through? Or does he avoid, deflect, or blame? So many people dive into intimacy thinking they'll sort everything else out later, but that's where the heart hatch begins. If he's not capable of having a hard conversation, version of me, what makes you think he'll show up for you when you need emotional reassurance after being vulnerable with him? Happy version of me, when we connect physically, our emotional defenses come down whether we intend for them to or not. Happy version of me. You don't want to realize too late that you've gotten close to someone who disappears the moment things get inconvenient. And sometimes asking this question leads to a deeper connection. If he opens up and says, I've struggled with that before, happy version of me, but I've been learning to do better. That's gold. That's someone who's at least trying to grow. Someone who respects relationships enough to reflect on their part. It's not about perfection. It's about effort and awareness. So before you share your body, ask yourself if this is someone who can meet you in the emotional space that comes with true intimacy. version of me. If he can't meet you there in conversation, he won't meet you there in connection either. Before you share the most intimate part of yourself, ask him, what does sex mean to you in a relationship? It might sound like a bold question, but that's exactly the point. Bold questions reveal real answers. This isn't about turning the mood into an interview. It's about understanding what kind of emotional terrain you're walking into. Because too often, people miss physical closeness for emotional closeness, and when expectations don't match, version of me. Someone ends up feeling used, confused, or led on. When you ask this, you're not looking for a scripted answer. You're listening for emotional intention. If he says sex is just a way to have fun, no strings attached, hippie version of me. He's being honest, and that honesty gives you power. You get to decide if that aligns with what you're ready for, version of me. But if he tells you sex is something meaningful, something that deepens connection, P version of me. And then you're dealing with someone who's at least aware of its emotional impact. Either way, happy version of me. The clarity this question brings protects you from investing in something that was never meant to go deeper. A version of me. A lot of people avoid this conversation because they don't want to scare someone off. But the truth is, if a question like this scares him off, he was never someone who deserved your vulnerability in the first place. You happy version of me. You don't have to apologize for wanting meaning behind physical connection. That doesn't make you needy. It makes you conscious, happy version of me. It means you're not playing games with your heart. You also get insight into his relationship mindset. If his answer is surface level or vague, that's a sign. If he brushes it off or avoids giving a straight answer, version of me, that tells you more than you need to know. But if he opens up, shares what sex represents for him, happy version of me, or even admits he's still figuring it out, that's someone who's thinking deeper. That's someone who values honesty over ego. Her physical connection is powerful, but without emotional clarity, it can create confusion instead of closeness. So ask the question, nation of me. Make it natural. Make it honest. And more importantly, listen not just to the words, but to what they reveal about his emotional readiness. Because how he defines intimacy tells you exactly what he's inviting you into, and whether that space is safe for your heart. Happy version of me. When you're standing at the edge of something intimate, it's easy to get caught up in the chemistry, in the thrill of the moment. Version of me. But what often gets overlooked is emotional depth. That's why asking him, have you ever been in love? Version of me, and what did you learn from it, can shift the conversation from surface attraction to real substance. Happy version of me. You're not just asking about his past, you're inviting him to reveal how he experiences emotional connection, how deeply he's felt. Happy version of me, and how much he's grown from it. The point isn't to compare yourself to someone he once loved. It's to hear how he reflects on that experience. Does he speak with bitterness? Does he blame the other person entirely? Or does he take accountability, show empathy, and share what he learned about himself? His answer gives you a window into how he handles emotional intimacy and whether he carries lessons or just baggage. You're not just looking for history, you're looking for insight. This kind of question creates emotional presence. It slows things down in the best way. If a man can't speak honestly about love, whether he's felt it, feared it, or lost it, then he might not be ready for the emotional vulnerability that physical intimacy can awaken. On the other hand, if he can open up, even imperfectly, it shows that he's willing to go deeper than just the moment. That kind of openness builds trust, and trust is everything when you're deciding whether to share your body and your heart. Some people will avoid this question, happy version of me, claiming the past doesn't matter, but it does. Not because you want to live in it, but because the past shapes how someone shows up now. If he's still holding resentment, still emotionally closed, or if he's never actually allowed himself to feel something deep, version of me, those things matter because they'll affect how he shows up after the intimacy, not just before, version of me. So Don't shy away from this conversation. You're not asking him to recite a love story. You're asking him to show emotional depth. Happy version of me, that one question tells you more than hours of casual conversation ever could. Version of me. And when you're deciding whether to give someone access to the most vulnerable parts of you, it's not P version of not just what he feels for you that matters. It's whether he's capable of feeling something real at all before things get physical, before vulnerability becomes something you can't take back. Ask him, what's one thing you're scared of in relationships? It may sound like an unexpected question in a moment charged with attraction, but that's what makes it so powerful. It disarms him. It opens the door to honesty. And more than that, it shows you whether he has the emotional awareness to even recognize his own fears. Because people who can't identify their fears usually act them out in the most damaging ways. Version of we all carry something with us. Maybe it's the fear of losing our independence, being hurt again, not feeling good enough, or getting too close. The difference is some people acknowledge those fears and work through them. Wapy version of me, while others let them control how they behave, pushing people away, going cold after intimacy, or self-sabotaging connection. Version of me, when you ask this question, you give him permission to be real. You're not judging, you're inviting him to show up as himself without the performance. And in that space, you learn more about what kind of emotional risk you're actually taking. If he responds with depth, if he can say something like, I'm scared of getting close and it not being mutual, or I tend to pull away when things get serious because of how I grew up. Now you're seeing the human behind the attraction. Version of me. That kind of vulnerability doesn't weaken connection. It strengthens it. It means there's a layer of trust forming, the kind that makes intimacy meaningful instead of transactional. But if he brushes the question off, laughs it away, or says, I'm not scared of anything, that's a red flag. It might sound confident, P version of me, but it usually means he hasn't done the emotional work. And when someone hasn't faced their fears, version of me, they often project them onto you later, confusing your honesty with pressure or your affection with control. That's where version, and that's where misunderstandings and emotional pain begin. Asking about fear isn't about creating heaviness, it's about creating safety. Version of me. Because real intimacy doesn't come from perfect moments, it comes from feeling safe enough to be imperfect with someone. Version of me. When a man can be real with you before the physical happens, it's a sign he might be able to stay real after it too. Version of me. When things are heating up, it's easy to get swept into the now, the touch, the tension, the chemistry. A P version of me. But the difference between a night you remember with warmth and one you regret often comes down to whether you paused long enough to ask, what would you want our connection to feel like? Not just today, but tomorrow. It's not about demanding a future or pushing for labels. It's about understanding his mindset beyond the moment. Because anyone can be present in passion, but not everyone thinks about the emotional echo it leaves behind. This question isn't about scripting the relationship or making anyone promise anything. Happy version of me. It's about seeing whether he considers the emotional impact of what you're about to share. Does he think beyond tonight? Does he cursion it? Does he care how you'll feel afterward? When you ask this version of me, you're not asking him to declare love. You're asking if he values the connection, not just the act. Version, and that alone separates someone who's emotionally available from someone who just wants the experience with no thought of the aftermath. If he says something thoughtful, like, I want this to feel safe, connected, version of me, and honest, you're hearing someone who respects what intimacy can mean. If he says, I want us to still feel comfortable tomorrow, no awkwardness. That tells you he's thinking past the moment, and that matters. But if he looks confused or gives a vague answer like, version of me, let's just see what happens, you now know you're the only one considering the emotional weight. That kind of ambiguity might feel easy in the moment, but it usually leads to emotional messiness later. Happy version of me. There's power in slowing down and inviting someone to reflect. If they're capable of it, you'll feel it in how they speak. Version of me. How they respond, how present they become. And if they're not, then no matter how strong the attraction, UP version of me, you've just saved yourself from investing in someone who can't meet you emotionally. This question is a soft way to draw a line, not control the direction, but to show that you value emotional clarity. Because your body is not just an invitation to pleasure, it's an extension of your heart. If version of me, and if someone isn't thinking about how to protect that heart after the moment has passed, version, then they don't deserve to be invited into it in the first place.